All right. Welcome, everyone. For all of you that know me, you know that I am a big supporter of this mayor, so you know that I am very proud right now. So I'm going to welcome you to Evergreen Academy Middle School. My name is Marion Stroke, and I am a lifelong proud resident of the South Side of Chicago, the principal of this CPS school in the 12th Ward, in McKinley Park, in Network 8, and we're neighborhood level 1 school as well. Our motto here is where excellence is the expectation. Equity, empathy, and rising to the 212th degree, that means going that extra mile, is our vision at Evergreen for excellence. Our mayor exemplifies someone who fosters and advocates for that vision, that same vision of excellence for the education of all students. Today, I'm given the extreme privilege and great honor of introducing the mayor of the city of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot.
Thank you so much. You know, I had the opportunity to walk through the school coming up here today, and it took me back to my elementary school years. And we had a very small school, probably a couple hundred kids. But the thing that I remember so much about that experience, and Principal Stroke, you really brought it home to me, is this sense of community. And it really starts with the principal and the teachers and the cooks and everybody in the school community really being focused on making sure that we provide the best possible nurturing learning experience for our young people. And even though the school wasn't full of students today, I really, really felt it. Glad to see you all here. But that kind of sense of pride and determination in really challenging our young people to live their best life and really reach for the stars, if you are able to instill that in the elementary school years, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. So hats off to you and the entire school community. And thank you for that introduction. Let me also give a big thanks to the other folks that are able to join us here today. Alderman Cardenas, whose ward in which we are sitting, and he's one of the hardest working city council members, doing great things for the community, so thank you, Alderman, for being here. One of our CPS parents and mother of a recent graduate, congratulations, by the way, Alma Sagala. Daniela Rudis Goodman, who's a member of the Crown family, and as I'll explain, is one of the people that the Crown family really responsible for making this announcement possible. Danielle serves on the Crown Family Philanthropic Board, as well as its Education Giving Committee, and their generous contribution has supported us. We are also incredibly grateful that you could join today. Stephanie Bonchero from the Joyce Foundation, Kids First CEO, and one of my favorite people in Chicago, Dan Aneo, and of course, Dr. Janice Jackson. Can't say enough to thank you for everything that you do for CPS every day. Folks, this is a big moment for our city, and I'm really thrilled to be sharing this with you. Today in 2020, as we all know, internet access is more than just an accessory. It's one of those powerful equalizers we have. A recent national study by the Pew Research Foundation found that over 20% of students could not complete schoolwork due to the lack of a high-speed internet connection in their home. And that number rises to over 40% in low-income families. And unfortunately, the reality of that study is very much borne out here in Chicago. COVID-19 crisis has impacted our city in many ways, including revealing unacceptable disparities across our city, from healthcare to jobs, education, food, and web access. Inequities that have existed for generations and brought into high relief by this terrible disease. As Pastor Otis Moss of Trinity Church once said, and I think eloquently so, our fight isn't just against COVID-19, but against COVID-16-19 and the things and institutions and structures that emanated from them that are still very much part of our present now. In confronting the challenges related to this disease, one of the things I've told my staff time and again is that we're not going to build temporary scaffolding to address an immediate problem. We are going to build a foundation on which we can forge long-term solutions. And in doing so, seizing this crisis by transforming it into an incredible opportunity to improve the life of our city and right the wrongs that have festered for way too long. This is what we need to do to be true to this moment and to bring true equity and inclusion to the residents of our city. And that's exactly what we are here to announce today. Back in March, when COVID-19 fully arrived in our city, as you know, we had to close our schools for the safety of our students, staff, and communities. And this created huge challenges for our students and families who suddenly need to transition to a new remote learning curriculum to keep our kids learning and engaged. But remote learning itself created its own challenges due to the thousands of CPS students who truly didn't have access to a computer in their home, much less internet access. But to the credit of Dr. Jackson, Dr. LaTanya McDade, and really the entire CPS team, they immediately went to work to address the digital needs of our students. And they moved heaven and earth to make sure that our students would stay connected and have the ability to learn. But the reality is, to truly create a lasting solution to this problem, we need a city response to close the digital divide that plagues too many of our neighborhoods so our students are truly empowered to learn. And that's exactly what we're doing. Today, I'm very proud to announce the new groundbreaking $50 million Chicago Connected program, which will provide free, let me say that again, free high-speed internet service to the homes of approximately 100,000 CPS students. This is one of the largest This will be one of the largest efforts of its kind in the country. But with a horizon of 4 years, it will also be one of the longest and deepest investments of its kind. Chicago Connected directly pays for internet service to CPS families most in need, bringing the internet directly into their homes so they can access all the benefits that it provides. The families eligible were determined by a range of criteria, including students eligible for free lunch, having special needs, experiencing homelessness, and students living in communities with the highest levels of hardship. We're also starting Chicago Connected now by prioritizing those eligible students who are enrolled in summer school. I can't say this enough. In the year 2020, this effort makes the difference between having an education and not. And really more than that, it's about empowering families. It's saying to them that you matter, that we care about you. We want you to be connected. We want you to be able to take advantage of all the full benefits that the internet provides, not just for homework, but staying connected and that information that's available on the internet. That is true power in the hands of our students and their families. That's important. And more than just for our students in need, this will also allow families of these students to build their own career skills, apply for jobs, support their homes, have access to health care, especially telehealth in this time of COVID-19, as well as learn English, fill out their census form. By the way, if you haven't done it, do that today. It takes 10 minutes. Register to vote, along with a multitude of other needs that the web provides, all of which takes our city one step further to being more equitable, more inclusive, and just more fair. And for all of that, we have a lot of people to thank, starting with the generous contributions and commitment of our incredible philanthropic partners, who time and again has stepped up for our city when we've needed them, especially over these last few months. Let me start with Ken Griffin and his team at Citadel, who provided $7.5 million for this effort. Some of you know this, but it bears repeating. Ken has been a passionate supporter of education, upward mobility, and access in the city of Chicago for 3 decades. And as I think about it, this initiative sits at the nexus, of course, of education, technology, and opportunity. And Ken is one of the most passionate people in our city about all 3 of these issues, and particularly the synergies and opportunities provided when we think holistically about all of them. And I thank Ken and his team at Citadel for their generosity. I mentioned the Crown Family Philanthropies, who provided $5 million. Again, the Crown family has deep roots in our city, and their individual and collective giving of time and resources is at the heart of so many of the important initiatives that are going on across our city, and we are grateful for their participation in this project. The Chicago Community COVID-19 Response Fund, who provided $2.5 million through the Chicago Community Trust and United Way of Metro Chicago, along with $2 million from Illinois Toolworks, another important business partner in our city, $1.5 million from the Pritzker-Traubert Foundation, and we can't say enough to thank Penny and Brian for their incredible contributions in so many areas for so many years across our city. $500,000 from the JPB Foundation and $250,000 from the Joyce Foundation. And in addition to these contributions, Chicago Connected also comes with a commitment of $750,000 from President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. The John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Chicago Community Trust, to the Children First Fund to support efforts by community-based organizations on the South Side. These include helping identify families that could be eligible for this program and making sure that we get the word out to them about the benefits of this program, working with families to sign up and assist families in computer and internet literacy, which is also critically important. We owe all of these individuals and foundations a big round of applause. What all of these contributors have done is show the power and promise of our city and how we are not just a city of big shoulders, but the city of big hearts, working together towards our shared destiny and future together. And I want to make a couple of final points. First, while we remain fully committed to making every possible effort to get students back in the classroom this fall, we also need to be realistic. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict what the public health metrics will tell us. But I can tell you this, we will be prepared for whatever the fates have in store for us. That's why Chicago Connected is especially critical now, because we need to be prepared in the event that any aspect of remote learning is necessary in the fall and beyond. Second, while Chicago Connected may start with our students, our hope is to extend this effort truly across our entire city. You can immediately see the benefits. If you are a small business and you don't have a web presence, you are limiting your possibilities for success. If you are somebody who just wants to look for a job, yes, of course, now our libraries are open, but having the access to that kind of power in your home, on your own device, that really is going to be the difference maker between getting a good job and not. So the possibilities are endless. We have to do everything that we can to close the digital divide, and I am grateful and happy that we are starting with our CPS students. We as a city simply cannot afford to wait any longer to provide our residents the basics they need to be successful, to be part of a city and the opportunities that this amazing city provides to all. We still have a long way to go on our mission, but this is an important milestone in our journey. I'm thrilled to be part of this announcement, and now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Jackson to the podium. Dr. Jackson.
All right, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to start by acknowledging our wonderful principal, Mrs. Stroke, who spoke earlier today. Thank you for your leadership here at Evergreen, which sits in an amazing community and network of schools under the leadership of our network chief, Dr. Elizabeth Alvarez. So I want to thank all of you for your commitment in being here. I also want to extend my gratitude to Mayor Lightfoot, which we often do in settings like this, but I have to be honest and say that she really lit a fire underneath all of us to get this done, and it gives me great pleasure to be here today. Throughout our response to COVID-19 and standing up a remote learning program, access to high-speed broadband internet has been essential and one of the major sticking points. So I'm happy that we're able to solve this problem today through the Chicago Connected program. This program is a reality because funders, elected officials, as well as our phenomenal team at Chicago Public Schools in the city came together with partners like Kids First to make this a reality. I want to give a special shout out to our Chief Information Officer, Phil DeBartolo, who's here with us today. He did a lot of work. Took a lot of uncomfortable phone calls for me after I had uncomfortable phone calls with the mayor, but we got it done. But we all understand the importance of high-speed internet access today. We know how important it is in our day-to-day lives pre-COVID, and now with so many people utilizing the internet for work, for learning, and for the most basic needs, we understand how critically important this is today. Chicago Connected truly is a game changer. While we've celebrated programs like this throughout the country, this is the largest program being brought to scale here in Chicago, and all of us should be very proud of that. As Mayor Lightfoot said, it's our sincere desire to see as many students in school as possible in the fall, but we have to make sure that we're planning and that we have multiple scenarios in place to be able to address that, and ensuring that our students, all of our students, have access to high-speed internet will help us get closer to that goal. The reality is the digital divide is real, and for many of our limited income families, they don't have consistent and reliable access to technology. You heard the metrics about students being unable to complete assignments because many families were making do by using devices and tethered to their own handheld devices in order to access this. We distributed 125,000 laptops, and we distributed thousands of hotspots, prioritizing our students in temporary living situations, but we knew we needed to do more. This investment will ensure that if we need to return to remote learning at any point during the next school year, that hundreds and thousands of our students will have access. But I would even go a step further and say this is essential whether we're in a remote learning environment or not. We now know, as we should have known prior to this, that having a device and access to broadband is as essential as we thought having textbooks were in the 1980s. With the support from our partners, we're making this available to eligible families in the city. At a time when social distancing must be the norm, this investment will help us connect with our families, whether it's through telehealth or having access to up-to-date information. We are ensuring that every single family in every community has access and knows what's going on up to the minute. That wouldn't be possible without the partners who have all been mentioned here today, and on behalf of the district, I want to say thank you. And to highlight the importance of this partnership, I'm going to now ask one of our parents who's been instrumental in providing feedback in our remote learning program to come up and share some information and share her valuable perspective on this great initiative. Please welcome Ms. Alma Segala to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Janice Jackson. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alma Sigala y soy del vecindario de Back of the Yards. Tengo dos hijos ya graduados de CPS. He estado activa en las escuelas por años en el sureste de Chicago y soy parte de un consejo compuesto de padres en toda la ciudad que les importa la educación. Esta iniciativa llamada Chicago Connected provee internet gratuito para los estudiantes y familias de bajos recursos. Es muy importante que las familias tengan acceso a este servicio, ya que el cambio repentino del aprendizaje remoto y las clases virtuales tienen sus desafíos debido al COVID-19. En general, proveer este recurso nos lleva más cerca de la equidad aquí en Chicago. En realidad ahora es que 1 de cada 5 estudiantes no tiene internet. Estos estudiantes tienden a ser más del área del sur y del este de la ciudad, predominantemente de comunidades afroamericanas y latinas. Gracias a CPS y a la ciudad de Chicago por trabajar en esta iniciativa que reduce la brecha de oportunidad para los estudiantes y crear un sistema de educación más equitativo. Crear la infraestructura de esta iniciativa no es un logro fácil. Esto es un excelente comienzo, pero aún hay más trabajo por lograr profunda equidad en Chicago, de aprendizaje virtual a visitas virtuales del doctor, a aplicaciones de trabajo y a otros más. Debo decir que el servicio de Internet no es un lujo, es una necesidad. El acceso al Internet va más allá que estar a la vanguardia, es estar conectados y poder avanzar hacia un futuro para nuestros hijos. En nombre de todas las familias, doy gracias a las organizaciones como Kids First Chicago, que estuvieron trabajando para que esta campaña se llevara a cabo y fuera posible. También doy gracias al grupo de padres que han trabajado en necesidad y han hecho que sus voces sean escuchadas. Gracias al Consejo de Padres de Kids First Chicago, a los proveedores, a los grupos filantrópicos, a la directora ejecutiva de CPS, Janice Jackson, y principalmente a la alcaldesa Lori Lightfoot. Good afternoon. My name is Alma Sigala, and I am from Back of the Yards neighborhood. I have 2 children that I have already graduated from CPS. I have been active in schools for years now in the southwest part of Chicago. I'm a part of Parent Advisory Board parents all over the city that care for education. This initiative, called Chicago Connected, provides free internet for students and families with high needs. It is important that families have access to these services. In particular, given the sudden change to remote learning and virtual classes and the challenges it came with the COVID-19. In general, providing these resources brings us closer to having equity in Chicago. This really now is that one of the 5 students do not have access to the internet. These students tend to be from the south side and west side of the city, predominantly Black and brown communities. Thanks to CPS and the City of Chicago for working on this initiative that addresses an opportunity gap and makes the school system more equitable. Creating the infrastructure for this initiative is not an easy task. It's an excellent start, but there is still work to be done to create deep equity in Chicago. From e-learning, online doctor appointments to employment opportunities and more. I have to say, internet access, it is not a luxury. Access to the internet goes beyond being at the forefront. It is about being connected and being able to move forward a future for our children. In the name of our families, I give thanks to the organization like Kids First Chicago that work on making this initiative happen. Also give thanks to the group of parents that I have worked on this need and more their voices here. Thank you to the Kids First Chicago Parent Advisory. Thank you to the internet providers, CEO Janice Jackson, and greatly to our Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Now, I leave to you in good hands with the Chief Executive Officer of Kids First Chicago, Daniel Anello. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Anello, the CEO of Kids First Chicago, and I am delighted to be here on behalf of the parents that we work on behalf of every day, and all the people here who have been a part of making this real, so thank you. So at Kids First Chicago, we work with parents directly to understand what are the things that are impeding their access to a high-quality education in Chicago, and really, in partnership with them, work closely with the district, the city, and others to shape policy and systems to make sure that it reflects what parents are ultimately looking for their kids. And in the wake of COVID-19, as you heard from everyone who's come before me, you know, it was fairly devastating to many of the families that we work with. And we had conversations with hundreds of families across the city, including Alma's, where they shared with us the hardship that came out of the moment that we hit this new reality. And at the same time, amongst all of those things, we kept hearing a steady drumbeat that remote learning and access to internet were a real challenge. And in particular, it wasn't just them, it was their neighbors. And so what we do with our work is we try to turn that into how do we investigate and find data, analytics that support how big a problem this is from a depth and breadth standpoint. And many of you have seen that. The report that we released with the Metropolitan Planning Council highlighted many of these things, but I think there was two things that emerged out of that report that were really important. One was there was an opportunity to do a sponsorship program with organizations like Comcast, RCN, and these internet service providers that have really stepped up to be partners in this. And two was that this was a problem that we could solve if we came together in partnership today. And so I really am here with tremendous gratitude for the city and CPS, United Way, the internet service providers that have stepped up to be a part of this, and really our parents who helped elevate this issue from the beginning. But I want to say a special thanks to a couple people. I'm gonna highlight them in groups, but Jenny Bennett, the CFO of the city, who has been an incredible leader on everything that's happened. I see other people nodding their heads that are part of our team, but you and your team have been incredible. Phil DeBartolo, who gets 2 shout-outs today. Your team at CPS has also been amazing to work with. Matt from Comcast, Adrian, thank you. Seth from United Way. I think that there's no way that this doesn't happen with the collaboration that's happened over the last 8 weeks. I am really happy to be here, so is my wife. But most importantly, I think this is the power of what partnership can bring in a city like Chicago when we come together and we fight on behalf of kids and families in the city. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. This opportunity is really going to open the door for hundreds of thousands of kids and tens of thousands of households. And I'll stop there and hand the mic over to Mr. Cardenas, the alderman of the 12th Ward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, they say that the good things are always last. I want to welcome our great mayor of this great city of Chicago, who has had a tremendous year. And I want a round of applause for her job and for her leadership in these tumultuous times. Welcome to Evergreen Academy, where excellence is not just a goal, but a mission. This is my daughter graduated this year in 2020, so it's a special year all the way around. Mayor, thank you for making me a partner in this important initiative. You know, it started, and by the way, before the critics start, with a resolution for hearings on broadband and the digital divide in marginalized communities. From the get-go, I got a call from a very special person, which I'm going to mention, that we should work together on this, to be patient, to collaborate, to hold off. Let's do it right. And I did not want to be like other of my colleagues who jumped the gun and showboat. I'm not naming names. There's no reason for that. We want peace. So we've been working this for, I would say, about a month and a half, almost 2 months. And Jenny Wong Bennett, I've been on the phone with her many, many times, working with her on asking me to be patient, me pushing the envelope, asking for details. What's the plan? When is it going to happen? People want hearings, people want answers, communities want answers. The students are going without internet, they're not learning, we're falling behind. Our communities are beset with problems, this is going to get worse, this just cannot happen in the city, and so on and so on. But I want to address something important in this city and the leadership of this mayor. Because much has been said in the media and in context which very much disturbed me, that somehow she was abandoning their neighborhoods. It was said. You guys printed it. Because one individual somehow made it a point that was where he was going to put a stake in the ground to get some fame, to get some headlines. Not for a moment, let me say again, not for a moment has this mayor abandoned marginalized communities, our neighborhoods. I'm here to tell you that. And I would not tell you that if I didn't know that I've been working on this for almost 2 months, way before the troubles, way before the protests, on something as important as our kids and their future. You got to know that. So when you start reading the Twitter feed, put it aside and always know this. Responsible people will do responsible things. And that's what leadership is all about. Not just the moment of the headline, but what are you working on long term, for the next month, for the next year, for the next 5 years? What's it going to take to lift this city from the status quo? I don't try not to get headlines. Sometimes I get a little bit, uneasy and restless, but what am I working on? How am I as a community safe? This community was largely untouched by the chaos. We are middle of the city. We are what makes the city. We're vibrant and mixed. We have all kinds of people, different colors, different backgrounds. But we all stand together on one thing. We want a better future for our kids. This school is a testament of that. A school to watch for many, many years. So I applaud the mayor once again for plowing through and getting us here. $50 million. There's a lot of policy discussions that go on, but without money, nothing happens. So thank you, Jenny, again. You're the CFO. I know you're on the call. You're making the calls. You're getting those dollar amounts that are going to get us to that $50 million goal that you set for the mayor. So I applaud you for that. I applaud the leadership of Dr. J, as I call her. She does a lot of dunking in her own right. She does. Day in and day out. And sometimes she's not on the Twitter feed, but she's getting things done. It's hard. This city is tough. But she's from the city. She's even tougher. She came from these neighborhoods. You can't tell her what's happening. She knows. She knows what needs to happen. And I'll stop there. There's a saying that information is power, but without action, you have nothing. And I want to quote Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. We are here together to do just that. Change our city and change the world. We all agree it needs a little cleansing. We know that. This pandemic, the great pandemic of 2020, has laid bare, as you know, and if you've seen, and exacerbated many social and economic inequalities. They cry out for change. So this investment goes to the heart of that. Many problems are facing us. This investment is for the kids and the families that don't have internet connectivity, that don't have access to the information I just talked about. How can they get power if they don't know what's going on? Their world is being completely dark to them. This indeed will change many lives. For me, learning, telehealth, job training, job prospecting, and God, just being informed to what's going on in the world. Withholding information, Mayor, I'll close with this. It's an act of oppression. We know that. So, Mayor, you and I know that. No more of that. No more. I'll say a couple of things in español. A mi gente latina, no se deje ir por la mala información. Los niños que están aquí viendo, los papás y mamás, que son parte de nuestro sistema educativo, saben lo que se está haciendo, saben la inversión que se tiene que hacer para poder llegarles a sus manos esta tecnología para que puedan ustedes también informarse y ayudar a sus niños a hacer sus tareas. En eso estamos trabajando. Crea en la información que le estamos dando, crea en el sistema que estamos progresando para ustedes, para un mejor futuro. No se deje dividir, no escuche a las personas que tratan de manipularla. Por favor, escuche el liderazgo que la va a llevar a un buen futuro. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Always passionate, always right on point. Really appreciate it. Happy to take your questions.
Thank
Good
you,
afternoon.
Mayor. And I wonder if maybe Dr. Jackson might answer this one with you. As far as the timetable for the fall, this seems to indicate you think there will be more remote learning. When might parents learn what the plan will be, and do you expect it to be a blended in-person and remote learning?
Well, I think, and I'll let Dr. Jackson speak more to the specifics. Look, the fact that there is this massive digital divide in so many neighborhoods across our city is a problem that we just have to solve. We're starting with, I think, an obvious point, which is connecting up our school children and their families. So whether, and I think Dr. Jackson said this in her remarks, it's not just about in-school remote learning. It's about giving power and access to information to our families. This is something that's been needed for a very long time. I think the remote learning challenges really highlighted the fact that this was an issue. I can remember saying to folks 2 years ago as I was traveling across the city during my campaign, literally there are places you go and it's like you've gone into an underground bunker because there's no connectivity. That is a problem that we have to solve. It makes sense to me that we're starting with our children. Certainly our hope is that we will be back in classes safely, but we've got to prepare for either occasion. But this digital divide issue is real, and we're starting to tackle it with this investment.
Is there a timetable for the parents to hear?
Yeah, so I mentioned this in our board meeting yesterday. First of all, we've been working on the reopening plan for about 2 months, just like this. We were awaiting the guidance from the Illinois State Board of Education, which came out earlier this week. We intend to put something out in the coming weeks, and it will be a draft, and then there will be a couple of weeks for parents and community members to weigh in. The district will be hosting a few sessions related to that, and then we will also instruct schools to put together their own specific plans that they're going to share with their local school council. So I would say in the coming weeks you'll hear more about that plan, and it will heavily focus on community engagement.
Thank you. Craig Dellamore wants to know how long will the initial funding and commitments sustain the free or even minimal cost internet service for low-income people, and how many devices will be needed to make sure everyone has access for good?
So this is an initial 4-year commitment, but this is something that the city has to own responsibility for. We're able to make this announcement now because of the generous contributions of the donors that we've listed, but this is something that we have to own responsibility for as a city, and we're going to continue to work constructively with the various internet service providers to make sure that they are also living up to their commitment and obligation. But we have to be in this for the long term. We've passed out, I believe, 100,000 devices over the course of this school year. We'll continue to make sure that those that our students have access to those devices. It's common now in a lot of schools to have tablets or laptops or other things that are available. This is just how learning is happening in the modern age, and we've got to make sure that we are leading on all of these educational initiatives.
Evelyn Holmes is asking, how does this new initiative address the thousands of CPS students who could not be contacted for remote learning? You said it was going to
Yeah.
impact 100,000, so.
A couple of things. We did have a group of students who were hard to contact, and we think that that was for a variety of reasons, as we've talked about before. There are mobility challenges, but I think that the connectivity is a huge piece. If they're not getting the emails from the school, if they're not seeing the updates, if we don't have good contact information as people move around, that makes it more difficult for the schools to stay in touch. And so this access, I think, is a game changer because it will allow us to have other modes of communication with families when cell phones aren't working. Now they'll be able to use their emails and social media, et cetera, so that they can stay abreast of what's going on.
Could you say for 1 minute from Adriana Cardona from WBEZ, on the new broadband, what's your troubleshooting strategy when parents and students experience technical difficulties? Even though Comcast offered free internet to low-income families, parents and school administrators say there were too many technical issues, and it was extremely hard to troubleshoot and access support.
Yeah, so the troubleshooting, I believe, is going to happen through the internet service provider. So just like if any of us are having trouble at home, if you have Comcast or RCN, you would call the service provider. But what I'll say about just in general, all of us experience transitions and changes because more people were utilizing the internet. I know that there were times when I would have an outage or it would be spotty because there were more people using it. And so we'll continue to work through that, but many of our internet service providers have also been updating their infrastructure so that they can provide more reliable service. But I think what I want people to take from this is that that's a good problem to have. If we're trying to figure out how to make sure that the connection is better, but you have access and you are connected, that's very different from being in a place where you don't know what's going on and you don't have any access. So I count that as a good problem should it arise.
Thank
Last
you.
two questions.
Really?
Really.
Wow. Okay, I better move over to,
And now it's tough. You know, can I just add too, as you're looking, the other part of this, I mentioned it in my remarks, but I want to highlight it here in light of your question. Getting connected to technology at times can be intimidating, particularly if you're not used to it. So part of the monies in this investment are going to go to helping bridge that divide with students and families and providing them with technical assistance and support. So it's not about the hardware, but it's also about helping them understand how to use these tools as another learning device.
could we get your reaction to the vote yesterday in the school board about keeping police officers in Chicago schools? Heather Sharon wants to know, do you still support an elected school board? If so, what discussions have you had about the makeup of the board?
Well, look, there's ongoing discussions about what that would look like, and we'll continue to have those discussions with our various stakeholders. But the real issue is, I am glad that the board decision came down in the way that it did. What's critically important, and I think again, it's underscored by why we're here, who's here in the school community. Every school is unique, and every school community is unique. It is not for me as the mayor, Dr. Jackson as the CEO, to dictate to local schools what resources they need. Some choose to have the SROs, some choose not to. But it's got to be based upon what the unique circumstances are at the local level in each school, and making sure that we're continuing to empower those local school councils. So there's a process that's ongoing right now. There's a lot of information that's being provided to the local school councils. Dr. Jackson and her team, particularly the safety and security team within CPS, are working with local school councils to make sure they have information, and information is going to empower them so they make informed decisions. So really the vote yesterday was about allowing that process to continue, to make sure that the people who are most affected, but also have the best information about what the needs are of local school communities, that the decision lies with them.
Kelly Bauer from Block Club is asking, you recently said no real Chicagoans have told you they want to defund police, yet there have been...
I don't think I ever said that.
It was a quote from an interview.
Yeah, I don't think I ever said that.
So she's wondering, because she says there are signs in windows in your home neighborhood that say to defund the police. How can you say you haven't heard from Chicagoans
Yeah,
about...
I have. If that was a quote, I was profoundly misquoted. I've never said that. What I've said is this. What I hear when I hear defund the police, because I try to engage people in a substantive conversation, what I hear from folks beyond the hashtag and the slogan is that they want more resources in their communities. They want more resources around schools, mental health, affordable housing, good paying jobs, all the things that we know that are the kind of investments that are important to really stand up healthy and vibrant communities. That's what I'm hearing from people when we get into the opportunity to get beyond the hashtag and the slogan. I've talked to people who signed on and said, defund the police. And I said, so let me understand this. Do you really literally want the police out of your neighborhood, out of your ward? I'm yet to hear one person that says, yes, that's it. I know they exist because there's some people who truly believe that reform is absolutely not possible and we're wasting our time. I don't share that belief. But most people that I've engaged in conversation with around this question are really saying, don't starve us for resources. And I agree with that.
And absolutely
One more
last
question.
question.
Okay, a sports question from WGN Radio. They're asking about fans in the stands. The Cubs said today they really anticipate Cubs fans in Wrigley Field. I'm sure the White Sox would like the same.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be fans in the stands to watch Major League Baseball?
Well, look, first of all, that's a discussion that we have not had with any of the major sports teams in that level of specificity. And I know that Crane Kenny apparently went on WGN today and made some statements, but we have yet to hear from the Cubs specifically about what is your plan for safety. So as I understand it, he talked about 8,200 people in the stands at Wrigley. That's a lot of folks, and it absolutely, obviously, exceeds both city and state caps on venues and capacity. But fundamentally, whether it's 8,000 or 800 or 80, there's got to be a plan for safety. And we're happy to engage in that discussion with all the sports teams. Obviously, there's no bigger sports fan than me. And I want to be able to enjoy live sports in the stands myself. But we've got to do it at a time when we know that that's appropriate under the public health guidance. And we're not there yet. And we've got to do it in a way that makes sure that when those fans are queued up outside the venues, when they're in the venues, and when they're leaving, that there's a plan to keep them safe and minimize the risk of COVID spread. And again, we're happy and anxious to engage in that conversation, whether it's the Cubs or my beloved White Sox, whether it's the Bears, because it'll be football season soon. Same thing with high school sports. This is a conversation that is ripe for us to have and make sure that there are real plans in place to get it done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.